Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you for taking the time to coming for this session. So this is a session where I'm Gopi Sankaran. I'm the Vice President for Strategic Cloud Ecosystems at Informatica, and I'm going to be joined by my esteemed colleague, Rajiv Srinivasan, who manages the technical alliances with AWS at Informatica. And today our goal is we are going to spend the next, let's say, 45 to 50 minutes or so talking about building cloud data management for analytics, ML, and Gen AI. We are at re:Invent. We should definitely talk about Gen AI. So we are going to go a little bit in depth into what is Informatica's point of view, things like that. But the cool thing is when Rajiv comes, he is going to talk to you more about what you guys are based on as data professionals, what you are encountering. And also there is going to be some cool demonstrations that we'll be having. Let me get my clicker. So as we start, let me set a preamble as to who we are. Actually, can I get a raising of the arms if possible? Like, how many of you guys are familiar with Informatica? Oh, this is great, so I don't need to go too deep. So as you know, Informatica, we specialize in cloud data management. What it means is we provide end-to-end cloud data management, which is AI-powered, metadata-driven. Bottom line, what we do is we address critical data challenges for the customer, be it integration, governance, privacy, quality, master data management. This is the bread and butter of Informatica. We specialize in this. And when we say AI-powered, we have invested over the last 7 to 8 years of building an AI engine and working through that. And because of the space where we are in, we generally tend to get an early outlook on what sort of Gen AI use cases or ML use cases that customers are using. And the strength of Informatica is also built by the foundation of the partnership what we have with AWS. When I say it's a foundation of partnership, we have been partners for almost 13 plus years. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have been launch partners of Redshift, and we have attended pretty much every re:Invent from the first re:Invent. So AWS partnership with data analytics AI has been hugely, phenomenally helpful for us as Informatica to go and address customer challenges. And yeah, we have a boatload of joint customers, actually 1,000 plus joint customers. We are transactable on AWS Marketplace. And to add to that, you see a listing of some of our customers across different industries, primarily in the enterprise, corporate segment, like any sort of segment, you will find Informatica on AWS. And we even got rewarded by AWS for 2022. We are the Data and Analytics Partner of the Year and also the Design Partner of the Year, where we brought the maximum number of innovations in data analytics AI on AWS. So it has been a deep partnership, and this created the foundation for us to figure out what is the best model for us to go and build the cloud data management across these analytics AI and analytics ML and Gen AI use cases. So before we go into this, as earlier I mentioned, because of the space of data management, the data platform where we sit, we tend to get early view on what are the current Gen AI use cases that are getting applied in the enterprise. As you know, most of the Gen AI use cases today is primarily around productivity. So whether it is around business operations or customer experience or marketing with respect to content creation, employee productivity with respect to text summarizations for the, or even code development or things like that. So it is highly, it's highly pointed towards productivity Gen AI use cases, which we are seeing today. But we are also seeing other things. We also see across different industries too. Because as Informatica, we also very much look at vertical capabilities. We have built some vertical capabilities for the different industries. We also see some Gen AI use cases when it comes to predictive maintenance and manufacturing, or drug discovery when it comes to life sciences. like things like that, there is definitely a big momentum which is going on. So when you look at productivity of virtual assistants and code generation, text summarization, but there is also this industry-specific Gen AI use cases that is really driving the innovation here. But one main thing what we can find in all these stuff is your data is the key. It is the key strategic and differentiating asset. What I mean by that is you will hear over the next 3 days, right? There are different foundation models. Your competitor is going to have the same access to all these foundation models, the different algorithms, all these stuff. So what is the differentiating thing? That is your data. And this is an area where we take, as Informatica, our point of view is customers' data is the strategic and differentiating asset, and managing the data pretty much determines how you are going to be successful as you go and develop your Gen AI use cases. So our point of view has always been we wanted to bring trusted data for trusted outcomes. And that has also basically, whether it is AI outcomes, analytics outcomes, basically your business outcomes is dependent on trusted data. But when we say it's trusted data, it is based on 4 major postulates. I call this as postulates because this is something internally we also dogfood it as this is very important. For any sort of a data leader or a CDO or anyone, you do need a deep understanding of the data architecture, because what you will see, or at least what we have seen with our customers also is, in the world of structured data or analytics, not knowing the full extent of your architecture, the system can be forgiving. But in the world of AI and unstructured data, there is no forgiving of that because you do not know what sort of output you're going to get. And if you do not have a deeper understanding of a data architecture, it is going to get very expensive. The next big thing for us is please ensure the quality of the data is very high fidelity across the data lifecycle. From the point of where you get the data to how it gets tracked and how it gets delivered, ensure where the quality falls, ensure how you can go fix the quality, do the remediation, all these stuff, because again, high quality data really determines and really helps you to figure out what are the right Gen AI or the ML training you're able to do. And the third, this is very important also, is do you have a strategy to manage personal information or sensitive data, and also an ability to protect your proprietary data? What we have seen with the rush, some people will even say that we are in the hype cycle of Gen AI, is people tend to forget that as an enterprise, when you go and do all these stuff, you do need to have a better understanding of how you want to protect your proprietary data when you mix with non-proprietary data. And finally, this is very, very important. You would have heard about responsible AI governance, all these stuff, but just go one level lower, establish data governance across your enterprise so that you can track what happens to your data across the entire data value chain. If you focus as much as across these 4 postulates when it comes to data, then as I was saying, you will have access to the algorithms, you will have access to all these foundation model layer, architecture, all these stuff, but this becomes your key and strategic differentiating asset. I talked about, this is just establishing the preamble with respect to what we want to do, but the next one, what I wanted to do is I wanted to invite Reggie, my colleague here, and he is going to give you a view of, as data professionals, how does this manifest itself for your personas? And he is also the demo guy, so.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Hear me okay? Perfect. Thanks, Gopi. So before I kind of go through my content, I would like to understand my audience a bit more here, right? So just by show of hands, how many of you are data producers? These are ETL engineers, okay? A few hands coming up, thank you. How many of you are data owners, like governance leads? Okay, I see one hand's there. Okay, there are a few more. Data governance, data owners, data custodians, awesome. And how many of you are data consumers, right? And also, we have a new set of data consumers now called prompt engineers as well. So we all are probably data consumers because we all consume data in one way or the other, right? So we're all data consumers. So what's going to be the agenda for the rest of the session? It's going to be about you as data professionals. We're going to talk about your data platform needs, and we're also going to talk about your data management needs. So that's what we're going to focus on. So a quick intro about myself. I'm Rajiv Srinivasan, and my primary responsibility at Informatica is building and bringing new innovations and integrations with AWS to enable your cloud data journey. So with that, we will look into the needs of the individual data community personas. So let's start with the data producers, right? Data producers have always had the need to bring data to these modern cloud platforms as organizations are modernizing or moving to the cloud. And they want to bring data quickly, securely, and at the same time, make sure that the data that they are bringing in is validated pre and post migration. And they want to do all of this without having to worry about the underlying infrastructure or having to worry about building connectors for each of those source types, right? With Gen AI, what we saw in the last 1 year is the need for bringing more and more data to the cloud platforms. And the primary reason is because of managed generative AI services like Amazon Bedrock, right? And the plenty of tools that are available in order to fine-tune these models or build models from scratch or even doing prompt engineering. And also the choice of these foundational models that you have on the AWS platform. And finally, which nobody can disagree, is the GPUs that are available, right? The hardware. That's the crux of it. What do we see with data owners? So now data owners, with generative AI coming up, they have to start rethinking about their strategy, right? It's no longer about protecting the data at rest in your data lake or while you're moving it, but also at the time of consumption, right? Within those RAG, generative AI applications or RAG applications that you're building. So all governance and data enforcement policies have to happen within those applications, right? One other area that we will, of course, dive deep into is building that enriched knowledge base or this domain-specific context that is available already within your organization and is probably fragmented across your different applications. How do you assimilate that, and how do you build that enriched, high-quality knowledge base that you can feed as context to these large language models? For data consumers, right, it's always been about, hey, I want to find the data. I want to understand the data, right? And I want to understand what's the quality of the data. Is this fit for my purpose? Because I have a problem that I'm trying to solve. Does it fit my need? And I want it to be access the data and delivered to it. So with generative AI, this high enriched context has to be delivered securely within these RAG applications as well. So how do we bring them in? So these are some of the needs. And the other need that all of these, as an organizations they have is, how do I foster the collaboration between these different personas, right? It's very, very important that we foster, that there is a platform that can foster the collaboration between them. So let's start with our first use case. We're going to quickly go over analytics because data analytics, I think, has been there for a while, so we won't take too much time into it. But I would like to quickly look at how the Informatica cloud data management stack integrates with AWS. So at the bottom of this layer that you see is all your data sources. This could be on-premise or in the cloud, or it could be your SaaS applications that you're bringing data from, right? With Informatica, with our cloud mass ingestion, you'll be able to bring data at the file level, at the application database level, or even stream it near real time. So this is basically to replicate the data from all your sources. Either you can do bulk loads or incremental loads and move the data in. And you can quickly build with our no-code, low-code platform, ETL pipelines, and also make sure that the quality of the data is prior to the data migration and post the data migration is the quality stays intact or it's improved. Not only that, you can actually embed these data quality objects as part of the pipeline. So you're ensuring, even when the ETL, as part of the ETL pipeline, you're ensuring that the data is of high quality as it is in transit. Now, once the data is in the data lake, right, now this is where all the metadata extraction happens, right? You're bringing all of that data from metadata from the data that you have in order to build a business and technical catalog, right? And also establish a detailed lineage. And how does this help? This helps data owners to identify what are the different stakeholders in the pipeline, what are the different transformations that my data is going through. And it also helps the consumer to understand as to, what are my assumptions about the data? Do I have a clear understanding of the data? And all of this even without getting access to the data. Then is where the data governance, this is where you can think of where all your business policies, business glossaries, policies, and everything. So this is where data owners and our compliance experts can apply different data policies and also the different business glossaries that they have. And with our integration with Lake Formation and our cloud data marketplace, you will be able to enforce column-level permissions, and also data consumers will be able to easily discover the data that is within their data lake. And now data consumers can bring in their different applications or analytics applications that are available on the AWS platform, right? So that's how the stack looks like. Now, let's look at a machine learning demo. So let's go through that first. So I'm going to take a minute to switch here. Can you guys see it or not? Okay, yeah, now we can see the screen. Cool, took for it some time to pop up. So we spoke about data marketplace, right? So here, I have Anna, who is a data scientist, and she wants access to the billing data, and she's trying to do a training model on the customer billing information so that she wants to understand with price changes, how are customers behaving to price changes, right? So she comes into this customer billing data here, okay? And you can see here, it gives us information on what data assets she has, where is it going to deliver, right? The terms of use, and all of that. So now, what she does is now she wants to get access to this data, right? So, and she wants to train this within SageMaker. So let's go to SageMaker, and here is a training notebook that we have, and then she runs it, and she figures out that she does not have access. As you can see here, it gives us that she does not have access to it. So now let's look at the next persona here. So for this billing data contains sensitive information, right? So a data steward within the organization has said that, hey, for all billing data, this is the policy that is going to be there. For all email addresses, all of the person first name, and also the social security number, everything will be masked, right? And so this is being already defined by the data steward within the organization, right? So when Anna comes here, and all she does is she comes here, she says, I want access to this data. And she says for billing data. And then she says, hey, need for model development, right? Then she clicks next. And here, it tells her, once again, assures that she's going to agree to the terms of this data, right? This contains sensitive information. So then she submits the order. So once the order is submitted, right, this is where our interaction with AWS happens. This is where we are looking at all the order details, what data it is, and now we can see that we are viewing the order here. So in this case, for the sake of demo, we have made Anna the approver as well, right? But in real life, it'll be an admin or the owner of the data who will be giving the approval. So now, as a data owner, I'm going to approve the data for model development, and I approve it, right? So once it's approved, and now this is where we kick off our automation in the back, right? So there is no human being in the middle. It's all automated. It's going to adhere to the policy set by the data steward. So now, if I refresh this here, you can see that the order has been fulfilled, right? Once the order is now fulfilled, you can see here now I have access to the data. And all the masking policies are being applied, even to the social security number. Even though it appears as number, there is the capability of having this as jumbled up or kind of hashed out in number formats and be available for analysis, right? And we also make sure that it's doing consistent hashing if you choose to do so for the sake of referential integrity, right? Now, Anna is done with her analysis and everything. Now she can go in there and then say withdraw access. Done with my model development. And now if I come back here and I run this, she no longer has access, right? So you saw that this enables the data owner to share the data with confidence, right? Because they know that there is an automated process in here, and it's going to adhere to the policy of the organization that applied by the data steward. So what did we just see here, right? One was fine-grained access permission, right? What is the row that the person can and cannot see? What rows or columns need to be accessed, even up to the cell level, right? We also have integrated with a service that got recently announced yesterday. It's called Amazon S3 Access Grants, right? With that, we are able to even have the permission at the object level, right? What you saw also was it was a self-service platform. And you're able to kind of also protect the sensitive data, and also this ensures that there is a timely access and delivery. If needed, the data owner can also configure a auto approval process in case of non-sensitive data, right? They can also configure an auto approval process. So now let's quickly look into the architecture of how this is built on AWS, right? So data producers bring the data into the S3 bucket, into their data lake, right? You apply different data quality and move it into the staging area. Now, once the data is staged, right, all of the metadata is extracted into the catalog, and all of the governance policy. This is where the data steward applies all their governance policies and also the fine-grained access permissions and masking policies and things. And then from there on, it's curated and then available as a data product within the marketplace, right? So now a data consumer, this is where Anna came in. You saw she requested access. Once the access was approved, we kick off an automation process whereby we provide the object level permission that needs to be provided with Amazon S3 Access Grants. And then we also provision the data in the newer bucket for you, right? Now, when a consumer via SageMaker notebook tries to access, he's going back to the Sage, he's trying to get the access grants credentials. Access grants gives him the credentials that he needs, and then now he's able to access the data, right? So let's look into how does the ML stack look like, right? Data producers, again, they can use the same set of tools for these use cases. They can leverage the same platform. They can leverage the same knowledge that they had on the Informatica platform. And then now they bring in the model repository. So usually, there's a model repository which is backed by S3. So the model, as you're building these models, these are available there, right? Now you're basically extracting the metadata for understanding, for enabling the data consumer to understand the data that he wants to train on, ensuring that the quality of the data is also, at any given time, you're also observing the quality of the data in your data lake. And via the cloud marketplace, we saw this is where the consumer requested access to the data, and then the owner granted the access. Last year, we also introduced a new service called InfaCore. This enables data scientists to use within SageMaker to build complex ML pipelines with just few lines of code, right? And they can leverage the connectivity, the depth of connectivities and connectors that we have within Informatica to bring data directly within their SageMaker IDE notebook, right? While adhering to the compliance and the governance policies. And finally, they bring in the ML services on top of the AWS platform. So that's how we build the stack. Now let's look at generative AI, right? I know everybody is excited about this. Okay. So what I have here is 3 personas, right? I have 2 screens. So we're going to look at the same persona. What if they query with the knowledge base within their organization that is being curated by our 360 solution, and what without the knowledge base, right? So I'm going to type here, are there programmable coffee makers, right? So this is a company called Acme that sells coffee makers. So now a procurement manager, Jen, who's coming in and asking, hey, are there programmable coffee makers? And this information that's coming up is not based on the knowledge base within the organization, right? So you're going to get a lot of noise from the internet, right? That's what you see here. Now let's look at the same question if it is posted with the knowledge base, right? So you can see here, it says, hey, there are 2 coffee makers that you have in your supply chain inventory, and this is what you're selling, right? And all of this information is coming from your enterprise context. Now I'm going to ask about, hey, is this one double-walled, right? This is very, very specific question to a particular product that is in my inventory. And I should have this knowledge because customers are coming and asking the question here, right? So you can see, unfortunately, I don't have any information in here, right? Because it's not coming from any of the knowledge base. So let's do this. I'm going to switch here to another persona. This is a e-commerce category manager, and she's going to run the same query here, right? Are there programmable coffee makers? Right? It's going to that same enterprise knowledge base within the product knowledge base, and it pulls up, and it also shows her the same 2 coffee makers, which is the 12 cup and the 8 cup. Right? She's interested in this 12 cup, 8 cup coffee maker. So she's going to ask, hey, what is the price of this? Similarly, it says 4522, right? And then the procurement manager asks the same question, and it also returns the same price because it's all coming from the same knowledge base. Now, the procurement manager asks, what is the name of the supplier, right? Can we take questions at the end, please? Thank you. Yeah, so it says, hey, Madison is the name of the supplier, right? Now I say, hey, what is the name of the supplier? So we are moving between two domains here. One is the supply chain domain, and then the other one is the product domain, right? And it's all coming via the same language. As you can see here, it did not give the name of the supplier for the e-commerce manager, right? Because as per the corporate policy, they want to keep the supplier name only with those persons who are probably part of procurement, right? So this is where governance is also needs to be applied at the point of consumption within the RAG application, right? So it's not only just the context, but also the governed context. Now I can go and ask, hey, is the aroma star eight-cup coffee maker double-walled, right? Yes, now it's saying a descriptive that yes, it is double-walled, right? And now I can ask, hey, what is the state, right? It has the context. We are storing the context of all the previous queries, so it's going to say the state at which the supplier exists, which is, it says it's in Texas, TX, right? So as you can see here, this is where truly both the data that you own and generative AI comes to life. Okay, we saw what was the use case and how it got achieved. Let's kind of open up the covers here and see how this knowledge base is being created, right? This is our MDM. This is our Business 360 solution. This is where you're bringing in all the data, and the data owners are enriching this data within the context, right? So I'm going to search for the same coffee maker here. So I've already searched for it. It's called the Aroma Star 8-cup coffee maker, right? And here is all the details about that coffee maker that I see here, right? Here is the description. From this, we were able to determine whether it's a programmable, non-programmable, double-walled. So we were able to get that context, right? And at the same time, there was this amount. We got 4522, right? We were able to derive that price as well. And as you can see here, this data did not come from one source. We were building it from multiple sources. So in an organization, this data is fragmented. So you need a 360 solution that can actually assimilate that context, enrich it, and provide it as a knowledge base to your generative AI. And now, you saw one other thing, that both the personas were moving between the two domains, which is between the product domain and the supplier domain. How are they able to do that, right? As part of this enrichment, we do have relationships and connectivity as well. So as you can see here, this particular aroma star has a supplier named Madison. So we are able to bring those two domains together, relationship within generative AI, right? So now if I go into Madison supplier, I can see that here are his details, right? So even though using a natural language, I was able to query and move between domains, but also at the same time govern who can and cannot have access to one domain versus the other, right? Within the generative AI application. Now let's look at the the role of a data product engineer in here, right? So now I'm going to look at so there was one query that I did at the end. What was the state, right, of the supplier, right? Not all the time that this data is of high quality, right? It may be jumbled up, as we will see. So the data producers who are basically producing this data have to ensure, right, that the quality of those data is also on par with what, or on standard with what your organization needs are. So one is about enriching the context, but the second part is also about making sure that the data itself is of very high quality. So this is a simple thing where, check, yep. They are looking into cleaning the individual records, right? So if I look at my supplier profile, right? Sorry, I'm going to go back to my profile here. Give me a minute. So this is my source profile. So this is how the data was at source, right? This was, if you can see here, in this data, right? You see here, the data quality is not great, right? If we kind of come in here, we have applied this rule. You can see that there were invalid state names or state abbreviations in here, right? So in this case, when you're doing generative AI queries, you're going to get the wrong result as well. So it's also important that we cleanse the data. So how do we see, how does the data look once it's been cleansed? You can see here that it's improved by 100%. Right? Of course, not all the time it's going to be improved by 100%. There has to be an acceptable quality and threshold. And why are we doing all of this? It's important because you have to have high quality data in order to generate trusted AI outcomes, right? And this is what a complex pipeline would look like, right, for product. This is the complex pipeline where you're doing a lot of validation. What I showed you was a simple one, but this is the complex pipeline. This is a full pipeline of actually bringing in production data into your product 360 or your supplier 360. Okay. I'm going to switch back here. So what did we see? Enrichment of the domain-specific context, right? It's more than important now with generative AI, is to be able to manage that domain-specific context and bring all of that data across your organizations together to drive trusted AI outcomes. The context was governed too. You have to be also sure about what one can see and cannot see. And you have to apply this at the time of consumption within the RAG applications. We saw session-specific chat history, which is to kind of ensure that this is all RAG applications do it. So how did we build this? Let's look at the architecture here, right? You have your different sources within the organization, could be external sources as well. You're bringing in the data, you're applying data quality on it, right? Ensuring in the first place that the data that you're bringing into your context engine, which is the Informatica 360 solution, is of high quality. Once it's in there, we push all of that into a vector database, we use OpenSearch for this particular solution. There are other other vector databases as well with RDS, Pinecone, Aurora, and everything that you can use. Now, when the user came in and queried the RAG application, we basically used two models here. We queried Amazon Bedrock. We used the Titan model to convert those texts into embeddings. And then based on those embeddings, we go ahead and go derive that trusted knowledge base and that trusted high quality, trusted context that we have already curated and built. Then we get all the chat history that's needed, if there is any. Then we provide this enriched prompt, right, to Claude. That's the model that we are using for this. Once the completion comes back, we write all of the chat history, and then finally we write the response back to the user. So how does this stack look like, right? Producer, we saw the same thing. You may be fine-tuning and bringing in custom LLMs or local LLMs here, right? You still have to do, which is make for the data producer to make sure that he's bringing in high-quality data and also ensuring that more than now, that your data scientists and your prompt engineers have a good understanding of the data, right? For which data catalog and lineage is very, very critical. Now we bring that data into the 360 solution. This is where we are bringing in data from various sources, assimilating them, curating them, and having them ready. And then now you're applying your governance policies that have to be enforced within your RAG application. And finally, you're bringing in Amazon Bedrock, your RAG application, SageMaker Studio to fine-tune the model, right? So we saw three stacks here, right? We went through the demo as well. Now, some of the services that you saw are, the Informatica services are all part of our Informatica's Intelligent Data Management Cloud platform. It's a SaaS platform built for our AWS customers, ground up on AWS, right? We've been continuing to build more and more integrations, and we continue to invest heavily on it. And in terms of what we see, or what's our differentiation when you saw the three use cases, is that it's a common platform, right? With point solutions, what we mostly see is customers are spending more undifferentiated heavy lifting in stitching the data management journey as compared to having a coherent data platform or a data management story for the three use cases. So how does the unified stack looks like? We went through the three separate stacks. How does the unified stack looks like, right? You see here, it's a unified stack. So now the same data management platform can support all your three use cases across analytics, machine learning, and generative AI. So this is where your data, right, as Gopi was mentioning before, your data is the center of all this, and your data is strategic to your generative AI, analytics, and machine learning use cases. And we truly believe that this is where data and AI comes to life. With that, I'll hand it over to Gopi.
Thank you. Thanks, Rajiv. That was quite a lot of demo work which he did, and a lot of prototypes that have been built, and I'm quite glad that you are able to at least see some of these stuff. So what are the key takeaways? So as far as the key takeaways to summarize is, I think we talked about it much, but first thing I would always say is, from Informatica perspective, it is always about bringing trusted data. It is trusted data for trusted business outcomes, whether the business outcomes is built on analytics, ML, Gen AI, whatever it is all about bringing that trusted strategic asset of data. The second one is more about, since we live in the space of data, we want to foster that collaboration across the data and AI community. Earlier, we talked about what are the different personas. We talked a lot about the producers, the consumers, the data owners. We did see a governance specialist there. We do want to foster that collaboration because when Gen AI becomes big, everybody are talking about Gen AI, ML engineers and all these stuff. But it is the people who sit behind and massage that data, who produce that data, who own that data, who steward that data. You are the most important you're a most important persona in this journey, and we want to foster collaboration while also addressing your individual needs as part of that. Finally, as we were talking about from a data management standpoint, we do have a unified experience. This is the unification of data management for analytics, ML, and AI use cases. Quickly, we'll open it up for Q&A, but I do want to give a quick shout out to a couple of things. You can also have much more detailed look at some of these demonstrations. Do visit us in the Venetian reInvent booth 252. And in addition to that, we are doing something very special this year. It is called as a Content Hub Takeover. It is at the Caesars Forum. If you do not know where Caesars Forum is, it is near Flamingo? No, it's near Venetian and Harris. On Wednesday, between 4 to 6, you will have a lot of experts in this space. They will be available for deeper discussions, and this is a very unique setting of Informatica and AWS for the Content Hub Takeover. And that is at Summit Room 232. And yes, there is drinks, food, and geek out moments. So that is the Content Hub Takeover for us. And just to continue the conversation, post reInvent, we are planning to do something called as a Modern Data Engineering Summit. It is a virtual event. Do register. Some of the architecture slides which you saw, you will go really deep into each and every square of that. So that is it's a cool session for many of the folks. Do take a look at that for the Modern Data Engineering Summit.